Hello, 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 everyone. And welcome to another Tuesday live stream artist chat. Today, super thrilled to be speaking with someone I've met a few times at the LivingRoom studio when we had that space at 149. And since then, kept in contact over social media through this fabulous social media thing. They're a fabulous, beautiful artist. Everything they do just kind of captures my heart as well as my mind. So when I just say I'm going to see them, I'm looking for them to join. Yes, today we're not. Oh, welcome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time, this is something, these live stream artist chats, something we've been doing since the beginning of the pandemic, really, when we didn't have an opportunity to connect in person and chat and share and shine a light on the work that we were all doing. I decided, well, why not take it online? And now once a week, it gives me an opportunity to check in with another amazing artist doing beautiful things in the community, whether they are making art just for themselves or to share with the public, or just to take care of themselves. And I think this artist kind of touches on all of those areas. Let's see. So today we're going to be chatting with Sidra Syed, who is someone, just lovely, a lovely spirit. And I'm not necessarily a vendor in the next few weeks. We will be returning to that in the lead up to the holidays. I'll be chatting with people who are making and selling stuff who would normally be selling their things at markets this time of year. If you are one of those people, get in touch. I'd love to shine a light on what you do and perhaps direct some people to wherever you happen to be selling your work these days, whatever platform, in whatever way you're selling work, because these are not, they're interesting times. For sure. Interesting times. And I think, whatever we can do to help one another out is a good thing. Hello, everybody. Wow. It's so great to see you here. Now, I'm just going to keep an eye out for Sidra. Send me a message. Let me know you want to join the live stream and I'll bring you on. But in the meantime, what other updates can I share with you today? For those of you who live in Oshawa, if you'd like to take part in the Listening to Our Neighbors project, you can still do so. This is where, thank you, Caitlin. Caitlin's asking, how am I doing? I'm doing okay. Thanks for asking. It's darker days suddenly, snowier days, colder days here where we are, but I hope wherever you are, where everyone else in the world is, that you're feeling safe, you're feeling loved, you're feeling taken care of, because again, things are interesting. But yes, if you live in Oshawa and you live in a priority neighborhood, artist Danny Crosby and the LivingRoom are creating neighborhood portraits of 5 priority neighborhoods in Oshawa. So if you live in one of those neighborhoods, we'd love to hear from you. We're hosting Zoom workshops now every week, and we're just excited to connect with people face-to-face in this new way and hear your stories about what you love about your neighborhoods and what you hope for your communities moving forward. I see Sidra. Yes, excellent. So without further ado, let's invite this amazing artist into the live stream. And grab yourself a cup of tea or cup of coffee, settle in, and I got my coffee right here. Thanks, Brew Wizards. Hello!
Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Your hair looks so cute.
Well, you're looking pretty fabulous yourself. Let's see what I'm going to do here. Oh, technology and me today are having a weird relationship.
Yeah, me too. I was looking to see, when the live feed popped up, and it didn't even give, the notification that it usually does. So that's okay. I found you anyways.
I'm so glad that you're here. Yeah. And how have you been doing? I know that pandemic times are strange times for everyone. How's pandemic for you?
You know what? I would say as a creative, I've been pretty accustomed to, being on my own and, dealing with a work environment that's not filled with a lot of people, I'll have collaborations or I'll work with a few people, but I haven't been out and about so much as maybe someone that has to work in an office. With that said, there still has been an adjustment. I can see how much it's affecting everybody else more than me. I feel very privileged, I live in a safe space. I'm comfortable. I have a roof, but there are people out there that don't have, the comforts that I have.
That is true. Now you touched upon some, and thank you for that. That's a beautiful thing to recognize. It's, yeah, a time where I think all of us, in whatever small way or large way, are called upon to recognize what privilege we have and just
Hmm.
spend some time with that and consider other people. Imagine other people more complexly than we might in
Yeah,
normal time.
definitely. Like in
But
Toronto, there's a huge, there's like a crisis. There aren't enough places for homeless people to, be housed properly. Like there's people like protesting it and everything. So before I think about how hard it is for me, I often think about that, is that like, there's a lot that I do have, and I'm fairly comfortable even with the shift.
I'm feeling like we're experiencing a lot of the same things. Perhaps this time has brought those things out a little bit more.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think in Oshawa, we have a similar problem with people who are insecurely housed or people who are sleeping rough. And we're seeing all those difficult things a lot more because when we do go out, they're just more obvious perhaps than they've ever been before. But okay, before we dive into all of these interesting things, could you please spend a moment to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, to people who might not be familiar with your work?
Of course. I'm Sidra Syed. I am a multidisciplinary artist, and I'm based out of Toronto.
Yay!
Yeah, I work in, I don't limit myself to one medium. I did originally study photography at Seneca College in like 2012. That's when I finished. And since then, I've been, opening myself up to different ways of creating. And you've actually been a part of that as well, because when I found the Living Room art studio, I had just moved to Oshawa around that time, and
Yeah.
I was really contemplating, um, what I should do with the limitations I felt with photography. I had this like vision, and I wanted to get some ideas out, and I found that, photography was limiting me a bit. And there's this saying about mastery, like pick one thing and just do that thing very well and master it. And though I do believe in that, I found that maybe photography wasn't the thing for me to
Hmm.
master. And so for me, it's been, um, what I'd like to master is nurturing my own creativity, and not just, you know, creativity that needs to produce results and produce paintings and produce, this and that, but like to really find that divine creativity, like that inner creativity that is from a very inspired place.
I'm loving the sounds of that. That is completely up my street. That's too that beautiful thing that the relationship we build with over time as artists, the relationship with process and uh,
Yeah.
curiosity and compassion and discovery, all of those really, really exciting, delicious things that let us move forward. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
to be honest, that mastery thing, I've never been able to really get behind that. I'm
Yeah.
around my
That's
space
funny.
right now. I've got maybe 17 projects on the go right now that
Yeah, there you go.
all in
That's
different
very inspiring.
mediums, everything. So I am familiar with your photography. I do love your photography.
Thank you. I
It's
mean, it was nice. I mean, I find that it was very satisfying for me to get my ideas across that way until I hit like a roof. And I think I hit that ceiling when I saw Instagram blow up and the internet kind of just blow up in like between 2012 and now, in the past 8 years. There's just so much content out there, that I felt a bit lost. Like, I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore. And I started rethinking it. Um, and now I have all that art, all of those photographs in my archives, and I still connect to them, but I've grown from there.
Can I ask, just because that's a really, really interesting point about, seeing so much and that saturation point, how it can sometimes make us question if we're still interested. What
Mhm.
drew you to like photography in the first place?
Well, my grandfather, he picked up photography way back in India. So I'm Pakistani, but the partition between Pakistan and India, the two countries, only happened in like 1947. So
Mhm.
it's still fairly, I would say, new, to the point where like my grandparents lived in India. It was still India at that time. So he did photography and he was involved in art in a time and space where it wasn't accepted as a profession, and it was actually frowned upon to see a man who wanted to do art, like to sell their art, like in a market or something. It was very frowned upon.
Yeah.
So something I had decided when I went to school for photography was that, I want to do this for my ancestors, for my grandparents, for him actually to continue on something that I think that I got inherently, like this eye that I've been told I have, which I was for a long time said, like it's the same thing as everybody else. We're all creative people, but I eventually accepted that, okay, yeah, okay, if I have a talent, this is my talent, and this is what I'm going to bring to the world. And it's been given to me, and my parents support it, and my father supports it. They get like the stars in their eyes when they see me working.
Do they really? So it's just love,
Yeah.
lots of love coming at you from those people in your life.
Yeah, my parents have always supported it, and as a South Asian, like I've had lots of people come to me and say, how did you do that? How did you fight your parents on it and say that this is what you wanted to do? And I said, wow, like that's eye-opening because I didn't even realize I had that privilege of not having to fight for that. Like I'm not even sure if it's privilege, but like I felt blessed that I have parents that said, this is your calling and you're good at it, and we want you to, continue, learn more about it. You can be good at something, but obviously like there's skills I need to build and things I need to work on, and they support me in that process. So I did it for all of us actually, the people that couldn't pursue arts in the past.
Holy moly, a creative legacy and just carrying that forward. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and sometimes I forget that that's why I started. And so when I say like, like, oh, I don't want to do photography anymore, this or that, those are very like, I would say even low vibrational comments for me to make, because I'm being subject to like other ideas, and I know that like genuinely I can do, and we all can do whatever form of art we want to, and that there's enough space for everybody, and all of it is valid, right? If you're making one painting or if you're making 10, and if you're posting something and you have like 10 followers, or if you have 10,000 followers, it's still very important, and it's very meaningful, and it'll reach somebody. That's what I've noticed about Instagram. It is beautiful because I am able to connect with people I never would have originally been able to connect to.
I find the same thing, but there is, I think, some truth in what you're saying about, uh, I don't know, maybe it's an artist thing in that sense of we love treading new ground, and it's fascinating to hear part of
Yeah.
your story of how you came to photography moving forward, because perhaps you being able to move forward in this path, that was started long before you were even here. That was started by an ancestor, someone who took the first step for you, or made it easier for you to move forward on that path. And perhaps that's something like looking around and seeing other people creating. When we see people creating, and like Instagram and photography is a perfect example, because now everyone has a camera in their pocket. They can take these fantastic images. So it makes me question, like, well, what's so special about how I see the world? How do I see things, and what do I want to
Mhm.
capture? And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not that you're, like, oh, I'm tired of photography, that's it. Because I don't think you are. I don't think.
I think maybe I have like I've discovered more mediums, and I was shocked to find that like I was able to pick up a paintbrush, or I was shocked at the ability of my body and my brain, because I always thought that like you need to be taught these things. You need to be taught to paint, you need to go to art school, and I didn't go to some big fancy art school like OCAD, and even the ones back in Pakistan, I would look like, oh, these Pakistani kids that grew up in a country that I'm from, but didn't get to grow up in. I'm Pakistani, but I grew up in Toronto. So
Yeah.
I longed for this kind of experience that I didn't have, and I let it put me down a bit. Like, oh, I'm just like a self-taught person, like that's all I am. So when I like started painting, and I started drawing, and I started, just getting my ideas out, putting them down on paper, I was, pleasantly surprised at the inspiration that just kept coming.
So, yeah, can we talk about that a little bit then, to see how you're moving forward, and maybe even like what the common ground is between the photography and the new areas you're moving into? Because you're doing some really interesting stuff and different mediums as well.
Yeah. Well, I find that when I started photography, and the common ground is that when I started photography and when I started, painting, it came from a very genuine place. Like I didn't see someone else doing it. I just knew that my family had this history, and I was taught about my grandfather and how he would do photography on like glass plate negatives way back when, there wasn't even a Polaroid in existence at that time. Like you had to really commit to the craft if you wanted to do it. So that's what I found to be very inspiring. And honestly, I felt it. I felt like it was my calling, and I went for it because originally I was enrolled into Ryerson for sociology because I wanted to be a social worker.
Really?
Yeah,
I did
so
that.
yeah, I really, I wanted to help people. So that's what I was gonna go to school for. And then I went on a trip to Pakistan to reconnect to my roots when I was 19, and it opened my eyes that like, wow, this is like this is huge. Like, who I thought I was, my being was like this small, but really like I'm not this small. I don't know. I have like a very limited view of the world at 19, like I hadn't traveled or anything. So it just like blew my mind wide open. And I did experience a period of shock where I was like, wow, this is where I'm from. And there's such a difference between Canada and Pakistan, like
Yeah.
the cultures and the economy and just the way everybody is. So in that period of shock, I find that there's clarity. And the clarity that came is like what I know to be real and true is that I believe in art and this is what I want to do. So I had that like very sincere intention, which I think is very important in, creating authentic, honest work. And that's all I went with. Like I didn't know anyone in art school at the time. I didn't know anyone that had done this. No brown girl had ever that I knew had never done this, but I did. I just, I enrolled into Seneca, and I was surprised when I got in. And it turned out that I was like one of the top students in the class too. So I just kept getting surprised. I was like, oh wow, okay, cool. That's great to know.
So something that
But
just listening to whatever that was. I'm also fascinated by the connection you make between shock and clarity. That's
mhm,
really interesting. And
yeah.
I'm thinking in my own life in those moments too, where things have been truly shaken up for me. And like maybe even I'm in one of them now because of what the transition the living room's going through. And
Yeah.
and I feel like there's kind of an opportunity in those difficult places as well, where you can just breathe and see. And I don't know, is it that the shock kind of stops you enough that you can absorb things in a different way? Is that what it is, do you think?
I think it knocks you out of your routine. It knocks you out of the things you're doing without thinking, like it forces you to reassess who you are and your life. That's what it has forced me to do. Like people who have had like um, near death experiences will
Mm.
say the same thing that they'll come back with this incredible clarity. And it's not like a near death experience to visit another country or visit a country that your background is rooted in, but it does provide that shock that gets you to reassess. And isolation, I think, has done that for the whole world. Like COVID,
Mm.
this pandemic, I do see that it has really called us to action and to like really slow down and take a look at what we're doing. And so I find that there's a lot of people right now that are um, focusing inward because that this is the time to do that.
I hope so. And I realized too, like we were saying, not everyone has the time. I think that, for a lot of us, there's been a slowdown because our routines have just completely changed. For some
Mhm.
people, it just had to keep going. And thank you, everyone out there who has been keeping going so that we can keep going. Um, I think that the rupture of not having the same things to distract us or to comfort us, all of those things, in a way, I'm grateful for those experiences. I don't want to have the world to have to go through anything like this again, but I'm
Mhm.
grateful for the things that I'm discovering about myself and everything I didn't know that I didn't know before. And who knows,
Hmm.
still don't know. Anyways, this is turning into the Mary Chat. How is this happening?
Yeah, well, no, I do want to know how everything is going with the Living Room Art Studio. It's like one
Oh,
of my favorite spaces when I came across, and I saw how inclusive you were. And you said that, um, usually these galleries or gallery spaces that I had experienced or had
mhm.
relationships with, they're very exclusive, and it's like catered to a certain kind of audience where it's like you can be a part of it, but you have to pay this membership fee to create anything, and some people don't have the means or the finances to buy art materials. And there you were, downtown Oshawa, saying, it doesn't, if you're homeless, you can come in. You can come in and you can create art, and like this is art therapy. And so I found that to be incredible, and I do think that it's contributed to like my manifesto as an artist.
Mm.
It's helped me really see like who I want to be and what kind of ideals that I do have and want to work towards. So I do know that there's been a shift in your studio space. So maybe you can tell me a little bit more about
Okay,
that.
lovely. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
okay. You know what? It's interesting. We let go of the physical space. So there might be people listening, and this might be the first time they're learning this too.
Hmm.
Um, just knowing that things won't return to any kind of normal for the next year, and a lot of small arts organizations are in similar places, right? So like Empty Cup is asked, hi Empty Cup Media. We were at we had a physical studio space that people could just walk in, and that's how I first met you.
Hmm.
We had
Yep.
that space for 6 years. 6 years. It would be 6 years this November, or maybe 7 years this November. Oh wow. I'm trying to remember. My brain isn't functioning that. But yeah, 6 or 7 years. And so, this summer ruptured everything. So our fundraising was kind of brought to a halt. We like, usually it's the spring and summer where we make the next year's money to pay rent. And so that couldn't happen. Knowing that we're going to be in this space for another year, I just wanted to be proactive. I didn't want to be in a place where we were uh, sort of left with nothing. And I thought I'd rather take advantage of this time to figure out what can we do rather than stressing out about all the things we can't do. So that was the decision that we made to close the studio space, even though we had an amazing, lovely landlord who was so supportive of us. We just thought, you know what, financially, let's take the step that will help us grow forward rather than maintain what we have right now. Because I feel like, and I see
Hmm.
this in your work as well, and I think this is something you're speaking to as well, that this sense of we can hold on to what we're familiar with, we can hold on to what we have, and we can fight as much as we can to do that. Or we can kind of step into that unknown and say, okay, what's next? Because I don't
Hmm.
know exactly what's next. I have,
Yeah, isn't that exciting though, right? Is there's also opportunity there.
yes, terrifying and exciting all at the
Hmm.
same time. And luckily, like we have a community of supporters here who, for the large part, have said, okay, go for that. And um,
Hmm.
we want to stay in connection with people. We want to keep doing what we were always doing, but it might look different. So, like, we're waiting to hear about funding right now that would help us create a mobile studio, which
Hmm.
would be super fun.
That would be great.
Yeah. I imagine it like, I kind of envision it like a really wacky taco truck, except instead of,
That's good. That's good.
we're sharing art supplies and creating, community creative experiences wherever we go. But and learning about people, because that is one thing that's limited right now. um oh, thanks Empty Cup. Just saying, smart move to be proactive. Thanks. I think one of the things I'm missing is contact, like personally, but I think also from a community perspective, like we're missing those spontaneous, like, experiences, like you coming into the studio that day asking my favorite question in the world, which is like, what is this place?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like,
I do feel like I manifested your whole building though, and I find that whenever I'm looking for something and I truly, really intentionally, sincerely want it, it
yeah.
shows up. So it was an answered prayer, your studio.
And that's what I love, that people like, I don't know if I would have met you otherwise if you hadn't just been walking around like along the street that day and stumbled across us. Like,
Hmm.
so I'm looking forward to more spontaneous, wonderful experiences. And
Hmm.
hello, looking forward to those accidental encounters. And but there are other ways of creating those too. It doesn't have to be physically. Like that's one thing I love about art. It communicates, it continues to communicate. So when you're creating something, I may not know exactly, what your experience is or specifically what you're trying to say, but it's still speaking to me and I'm able to have a conversation with it. It's one of the things I love about your work because it does spark off things for me. So like photography does that in a very specific way, but you have moved into, is it painting? Tell me more about where it is you're creating right now.
I've picked up painting, like
Yeah.
acrylic paintings, but I've also taken like a deep dive into like digital illustration,
Yeah.
to help me get some ideas that I had, just get them out. And it's been quite exciting, I would say, because with photography, I had this limitation of being able, you photograph something that's already there. And so this idea that I had was almost um, too wide to be captured by photography. It was very imaginative and it was like this fantasy idea, particularly sci-fi Sufism. So
Can you
what I
explain
did,
a bit more about that for folks who may not be familiar with it?
yeah, well, it's a new term, I would say. A friend of mine, he coined it, Sachs. He's an artist in New York City, and he creates art around the same like it's a new genre, and I owe it to him that title, sci-fi Sufism.
Love it.
And so it's sci-fi mixed with Sufism. So the sci-fi, very futuristic um, aspects of my project are they can be contained to that kind of title, and then Sufi would pertains particularly to this spiritual mysticism that is like the basis of this project. The project is called Minaret Moon, and it's a narrative story that I've been working on. I would say it's been like 2 years, and originally it started, the idea came to me. This is so typical. In Montreal in a hotel room, and I started just scribbling it out in the hotel room on those like little notepads, and I
Yeah.
started drawing out just what I felt, just not being limited by what I should do and what it's supposed to look like, but I just had this like really good idea. Um, and I started pouring it out and I let it pour out of me and it just kept going. So um, that would be Minaret Moon, and I'm still working on it, and it's been in the ideation phase for a while now. And I'm not going to give away the story completely, but it involves like little robot dervish dolls that are situated on a second, an invisible moon of Earth. So they live there, and there's only a few ways to access this plane and this reality. And that's like, what the story will be about. And most of the ways to get there are through introspection and self-love and acceptance and having an inner harmony, and also being like kind and compassionate to each other, and leveling up in an internal way.
Wow. That sounds extraordinary. It sounds I don't even know where to begin. Okay. Well, I'll pick one because this points to another thing that I've seen in your work as well, this beautiful love, like self-love, love of, yeah, it sounds amazing. I agree, Empty Cup. Okay, can you pinpoint like where this came from? Like I know it just came to you in a moment kind of thing, but was there like this seems to be a reoccurring theme in a lot of the work you have. Maybe not.
Yeah, I find that, of course, I feel like I need to produce work, and as an artist, I feel like I need to, based on like the frequency that people post things on Instagram, just alone that fact, it gives me this idea, or it gives a lot of people that idea, and even young artists. Sometimes I worry that like they're getting this idea that they have to constantly make stuff, constantly produce stuff, and it has to be something different every time.
Yeah.
So that's something I was struggling with, and I knew inherently that like that's not the case. I studied photography, and it wasn't some big fancy art school, but I did learn a lot from my program, and how it takes a while to develop something. So what happened was, over the last 5 years, I've come on to this new reality, and that reality is being a mother. And that also shakes you up, and your whole world changes when you have a kid, honestly.
Mhm.
So my son is my biggest muse, and he was the major inspiring factor to creating this project because I wanted to create a story that he could relate to as a kid that has, that will also struggle and also kind of experience the challenges of being from the East, like having a background in the East and
Mhm.
growing up in the West. So he was very much a source of inspiration for me, and he still is. And I find that whenever I'm even with him, I'm able to tap into like what I truly want, because all the extra stuff just falls off, like when you're looking at your child. And for people that don't have kids, you can go back and remember back to a time when you were a kid, like what really mattered to you at that time. And that, around 3, 4, 5 years old, um, those things are like the core of, I think, humanity. And we
Mhm.
forget that as we grow older, and it's maybe trained out of us, or it is, we forget our like true nature. So I wanted to create something that would um, remind any child of their inner self, of their soul, of their, that's what I believe, is that we're all souls and that we have this like exterior body, and that we're going through life, and that we all have this common ground. So they're very basic, like fundamental truths that I want to put into this story. And how I'm going to put them in is basically, it's going to be a creative process for me. And I have some help with that as well. But being a mother has been a huge blessing, and the challenges of being a mother have also been a huge blessing for me creatively. Sorry.
Well, that's, I mean, that's something like, for someone, I'm not a mother. So there is that really interesting thing of like, I can't imagine finding the balance. And you speak of inner harmony and inner balance being something important, like to you. And it's not necessarily like you have it all the time. I don't think any human does, but the fact that we seek it, that we make space for it, is important. And oh, I
Mhm.
see. Okay, so I hear someone asking here, could you talk about the process of inspiration to creation? How much time usually it takes, how the thinking process looks like? Nice question, because there's the idea, the concepts, and then there's actually externalizing it. How do you get it out onto the page? And I suppose like there's a certain kind of discipline that you have to find within yourself to do that. Yeah, can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that?
I would say the main factor to creating and get turning an idea into a substantial piece of art
Mhm.
is to create consistently and every day, and kind of like don't stop, don't you let yourself be discouraged in any way. um, and that, when you start to get an idea out, to allow yourself that room to explore the idea, and to put your inner critic away, to put that away and say, like, I don't need to listen to that right now. And even Jerry Saltz, he's a New York City art critic, like contemporary art critic, and I listened to his audiobook earlier this year. He said the same thing, and he's an art critic.
Mhm.
And his advice, he's seen a lot of art, was the same thing, which is like, like put your pen to paper and just start creating, and continue to create until your page is completely full, and and continue to work at it. And so for me, I find that I am consistent in creating, and that is a goal of mine, is to also, um, not let that go, even if I do feel discouraged, or I'm feeling like a bit self-critical, or I feel like it's not perfect, is to maybe give it a break, but then come back to it again.
That's so what does that look like for you? And what does it look like at different times? Because there are days, and I imagine for you, the same as everyone else out there. But again, like speaking to that motherhood piece too, like your days are full of so many other things. Like, is it a minute? Is it 2 minutes? Is it 5 minutes when you can? Like, what does a good day look like for you? If you're open to sharing this, I'm not the boss of you. What does like a good day look like for you versus one of those days where you're just like, ugh, I'd really rather not. I just want to, binge watch Netflix or, whatever. Like, what's the ideal day for you, and what's the kind of
You know what? There's
Together.
an ebb and flow to creativity, just like there is to everything else in life.
Mhm.
And to not being hard on yourself is important. So allowing yourself that space to take a break. I binge watch Netflix, but when I am watching something, I am careful to pick something that either will contribute to my awareness as an artist,
Mm.
and to not like dull my senses too much because I do find that there's a lot of like information in the world and a lot of content out there, and so I do need to be careful in terms of guarding myself from things that are, distracting. So a good day could be binge watching Netflix, but not binge watching like, I don't know, Fast and Furious for me. It would be binge watching something that is related to sci-fi. Like I watched all the Marvel movies lately,
Yeah.
because of the fantasy aspect and the sci-fi and these superhero figures they have, and I really studied into them in terms of like, well, what are these like archetypes that we have, and these movies did so well. So I kind of take it as a study piece.
Interesting.
And my downtime is also related to my art. So I never completely let go of the art, like in terms of like making a painting
Mhm.
or creating like a digital art piece. But um, I do work within a harmony, within like all aspects of my life. It's all connected.
It sounds like intention. That seems to be a key part of what you do. If it's like a choice to do there, you want to be there fully and to have it feed back into your life, your creativity, your own sort of uh, yourself, of like feeling good and feeling that balance.
I think that it is very, I would say, tethered to your self-worth as well. So,
Mhm.
I always found that it is something important to do, which is listen to yourself. And it can be hard to do that,
Yeah.
um, around a lot of people and a lot of noise. But the more you do it, the more you slow down. And this is what you taught me. You use the term slow method with me for the first time. And I thought, oh my God, wow, that's like a really good way to put it. Just to like slow down,
Yeah.
um, and listen. Um, so I find that it's important to sit and meditate and pay attention to, what thoughts come to you, and pay attention to something that maybe you're doing or maybe you're experiencing that doesn't feel right, and really acknowledge it and write it down. So there's a lot of like um, process that comes with developing self-awareness, and that is tied into my work. Like Minaret Moon is a sacred art project for me, and I don't work on it unless I'm feeling connected to my inner self. So if I'm feeling like very negative, or I'm feeling like, I have like self-pity, or I'm feeling like, oh, everything's going wrong, and I just want to, you know, lie down and watch something, that's not the time that I'm going to work on producing Minaret Moon. It will be likely after I have danced it out, done a meditation, gone for a jog, and done some introspective work, that I'm able to create any of my best work. And that's a common thread in like in my entire artistic like process,
Mhm.
for the past like 10 years, is I do create my best work when I am more honest with myself.
That's a beautiful thing, that honesty. Perhaps that's what I think for me, that's one of the things that makes, like when I'm drawn to a piece of art, it has something to do with that. And you mentioned before um, the idea of like authenticity and creativity and what that means. Because I think we throw around those terms a lot. Like it's
Mhm.
authentic, honest, raw, whatever, available, vulnerable. Like there's all these words. But what that actually means, it seems like, is this what you've just said, what you've just captured about the process of not being honest necessarily with other people, but being honest with yourself. And
Mhm.
how do you get into a space where you can have that relationship with yourself and, you know, the page, the canvas, the piano, the camera, whatever it might be. That's
Mhm.
a really interesting process. And I feel like that is the discipline. That's what takes something from inspiration. Look at me. Look at me. I'm getting all prescriptive. I'm not. I'm not the boss of you. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that idea, is that what happens between that moment of inspiration and externalization? Is that the piece that is good to focus on?
You know what? I think that everyone has a different route, but we're
Mhm.
all looking for the same thing. We're looking for peace, we're looking for love, we're looking for a harmony. And these are words that are thrown around as well. But the cliches are there because they're based on truth. And they've
Mhm.
only turned into cliches because we've repeated them so much. Meanwhile, we've lost like the essence of these things. So,
Mm.
you know, for me, it's, being authentic means to not compare myself to others, not compare myself to other artists or other human beings, but see our common ground and really look inwardly and know that like I have a voice, it's an important one, and that I have ideas that I want to put out,
Yeah.
um, and even ideas like writing out your ideas and then okay, I'm pretty particular as a person, so I actually write out my ideas and then I go backwards. I work through where this idea came from and what inspired me towards this idea. So sometimes I'm able to pinpoint a thought that actually came from someone else, and I think, okay, well, yeah, I was just inspired by this other person and what they're doing. So I would rather acknowledge the beauty of their project and just put that away and just acknowledge it. Because I
Hmm.
do think sometimes as artists, we think, okay, they're doing that, so I want to do that too. Like if you look through Instagram, there's a lot of the same stuff out there with like a few differences. So I think that putting it away helps me be brave,
Mm.
brave enough to do something that I haven't seen anyone else do. And that does mean you need to be vulnerable because you're scared to do it, and I feel scared to do it. Like Minaret Moon is like my sacred art baby, and I'm putting it out from this like very real place. And I find that the people that do connect to it, then I know that they're truly connecting to it. And I think that it's so beautiful because people meet when you put yourself out there from an authentic place and you're vulnerable,
Mm.
people meet you there. They're also meeting you from a very human place, and that's worth so much more to me than, the quantity of, paintings that I sell or, art pieces that I sell or the quantity of like followers that I have.
That's your archive moment. That's that place of connection, that liminal space in between the work that you share with people and that willingness and vulnerability on the audience members' part too, I think, to approach you, to connect to however they might connect, whether it's just silently, observing, liking. How do you feel about that, the relationship with a follower or an audience member or an appreciator? What do you, I'm stacking
Um,
my questions quite a bit today, so I'm just gonna have a sip of coffee and let you answer.
no, I feel like I'm not used to talking this much. I'm actually a very shy person, so this is new for me. And I'm coming from a very vulnerable place right now to like put myself on Instagram and talk in a semi. This is very public, actually. This isn't even semi-public. This is just public. So it does pay off. I think that um, there is never, you might get into trouble and you might get hurt when you put yourself out there and you are coming from a vulnerable place. But I find that like it is always worth it in the long run because it is so rewarding to to know that you've been honest, to know that like just having that inner peace, like it's great for your inner peace is to just work from an honest place. But you know what? Actually, I forgot your question because I'm kind of going
I
off on
forgot
my
my
own.
question too. That was better. But
Yeah, what were we talking about? Oh, the relationship between um like an artist and their followers, or do you mean particularly Instagram?
well, I think these days it could be it's all of those things. I think well, especially during these strange times, the only way so many of us have to connect as artists, if you're creating and you're putting something out there, it is online, and social media, whether we like it or not, plays a huge part in that.
Hmm.
And to me, social media has always been about relationship building, which is a terrifying thing. I'm also very shy as well. It's a really weird thing. Um,
I would have never have guessed that you were shy. You like run the living room art studio. You're usually talking to like I walk in and you're usually talking to like three people at once, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna try to just say hi from a distance. Hi, Mary.
that's an accurate, yeah, that's it. But it's
Yeah.
one of those things I think, well, how did I feel like I would like the same as with any kind of creation, because I think part of my creative energy is in communication. I think that's part of the art that I do. Perhaps is a social art, like social practice artist. That sense of it has to do with building relationships and connecting, but it takes a toll. So, like any artist out there, I'm sure it can relate to this sense of I'm choosing to invest in this moment now, and I I don't know, maybe you've experienced this before, like even in like engaging with audience through live streaming or things like that. Afterwards, I need to take a moment to recover and to
Hmm.
kind of go back to my space, because there is, we share so much. And one of the things I love about art and visual art or music, it allows us to communicate so much, but not necessarily explicitly say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what this song means, this is what this poem is saying. There's still this lovely middle space where the viewer, the appreciator, can interpret it as they want, which is a form of protection for me as an artist. And I appreciate that middle ground, that kind of art shield that's created for me, because I need to have that space um, to continue to be creative. I don't
Hmm.
know.
I
It's
think that
something
we
like
are on
Instagram.
the same place in that.
Yeah. Like, and when I think about the sort of negative sides of social media, for me, they generally have to do with people not necessarily like, I worry about people sometimes. I worry about, um, and I have no right to worry about anyone. But sometimes the question of putting your life so much out there and being so available, and just hoping that, and I'm sure everyone does, just recognizing the agency we have to manage and create boundaries, even with this
Hmm.
fabulous way of connecting and sharing our work. Because
Yeah.
that's something uh, I think is just so easy to share. It's never been this easy before. And perhaps that's why
Hmm.
there's so much of everything out there now.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't even know what, forget my question. I have no idea. But yeah, the
Yeah.
Instagram thing is interesting. The availability, we can be as honest as we want to be, as often as we want to be, and people will be there to receive it for the first time in like in such a grand way, more so than any other time in our history of of humanity. I think it's a strange
Hmm.
thing.
I think that the thing about social media is that everyone is putting themselves out there,
Mm.
but almost not ready to hear it yet. Like there are people that will
Mm.
follow you, but they're not ready for your opinion, or they're following you out of curiosity, but they are not at this, evolved place where they can accept that you have your own opinion, you have your own lifestyle, and move on. There's internet bullies out there. There are people that are not going to agree with you, and
Hmm.
so when coming from such a vulnerable place, you're going to get hurt as well, like because you're so open. So there is a balance that you need to find, and I think we all have to find that balance. As I think you're a bit of an empath, and you care for others, and you relate to others. And I'm also an empath. I'm like a hyper vigilant empath. I can relate to almost anybody, and so as an empath, it is my duty towards myself to,
Hmm.
put up those boundaries, to take care of myself, so that I can continue to produce art, or continue to be a good mother, or continue to, be good to myself.
Yeah,
And that's a part of the process, is putting your own oxygen mask on before you put on the person's beside you. Like,
I can
that
see.
analogy.
I can see how you almost became a social worker.
That's funny. Yeah, I love social workers. Like I have some friends that are social workers, and I deeply relate.
I think artists play a role in that as well, though, and I think maybe it's being recognized now for the first time, beginning to be recognized, the role we play in uh, health and wellness and self care, in sort of moving, like reminding cultural, um, like art isn't just about product; it's about process, and taking care of ourselves helps that creative process, regardless of whether or not you see yourself as an amateur artist or someone who wants to make it professionally in your modality. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, then the work can't happen. It just can't.
Mhm, mhm. I think it's a bit like more important now more than ever, during the pandemic, to take care of ourselves, like all of
Mm-hmm.
us, and even to check on each other. This is why I also wanted to like do this chat with you, was like just connect in a way that is possible right now, because I mean, I very much can't just like show up at the studio because things have changed.
Yeah.
And one, the space doesn't exist, but two, we can't connect because of COVID. Um,
Yeah, but again, social media to the rescue. And this, I love that we can connect this way. And I love that we can open this conversation up to the larger community. And I hope that people at home are having these kind of conversations as well with their family, with their friends, with their
mhm.
colleagues. It's so important, because I think there's going to be things that we want to hold on to as we move forward out of, you know, out of pandemic times.
Yeah, I agree. I think that with all of the, yes, of course, there's like a lot of negative aspects of the pandemic, and people are getting sick all over the world.
Mhm.
But if I am to try to look on the brighter side, and there always is one, there is always a very bright side. And I would say that that is that we've been given an opportunity to introspect and to connect without the noise, and without so many things have closed. Like there's no clubs, there's no library is open. So you have to really sit at home if you want to read something, and like pick up your book and do
Mhm.
it with a lot of intention. And so if those of us that have these privileges of having a home and heating and food, and the ability to sit down and do these things, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to grow as human beings.
Love it. I appreciate you being here so much today. It's been such a pleasure chatting with
Yeah,
you.
I agree.
Before we kind of sign off for the day, is there anything you want to share, like say to the community of folks who might be listening or watching, anything, any art assignments you'd like to give them with regards to like developing that self-acceptance or inner harmony on the way
I'm just one
to
person, right?
vision?
So I definitely don't feel like I'm a pro at self-awareness. But to take that step towards getting to know yourself and making that intention, I think that's the most important thing, because everything else comes to you. If you just make that intention to grow as a human, grow as an artist, and to create sincere work, I think the universe helps you out in that way, and it'll deliver. I can attest to the fact that it delivers.
Well, I'm super excited to see what happens with Minaret Moon and all the other fabulous artwork you create. It's always such a pleasure to see what you're working on. Will you
Yeah,
keep us updated about that project?
of course I will. Yep. And if anyone wants to like follow me, they can go ahead, and it's private right now, but I just usually DM whoever's requesting to follow me, and I'm pretty active in my DMs, so we'll probably have a conversation. I like to get to know whoever connects with me, and then yep, you're in.
Lovely. So that's at Sidra Studio or Studio Sidra.
Studio Sidra, yep.
Studio Sidra. So yes,
Yeah.
please do follow, and yeah, and super excited and sending you all the love and loveliness that can be shared on a gray day like
Yay!
today.
You too. Thank you. Mwah.
Mwah! And thank you for having such a great conversation with us.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for facilitating this, and I'm gonna watch like all your other talks too. I've been watching them. And don't forget to take care of yourself as well. Like totally tune out after you're done. Yeah.
I know, not so good at practicing what I preach all the time, but that's why we're here to remind one another. Thank you
Hmm.
so much.
Okay, bye now.
Bye, Sidra. Hello, and thank you again. What a wonderful conversation to have with an extraordinary person. Um, yeah. So follow Studio Sidra if you'd like to keep updated about the Minaret Moon project and all the other lovely things she's working on. And I don't know about you, but I'm going to be taking away that piece about intention and just considering that space in between. And thanks for that wonderful question, folks, about thanks like that the space between the inspiration and the externalization of art. And what's my relationship with that? So yeah, I think all of us want more authentic work. We all want to discover and learn who we are in the creative process, so that whatever we do put out there in the world is truly speaking our truth and resonating with the folks out there that we want it to resonate with. So thank you for sparking such an exciting conversation, Sidra. And thank you for watching and listening, everybody. We'll be back next Tuesday with another chat with a fabulous artist and maker from the community. I'd love for you to tune in. Instagram every 2 p.m. every Tuesday. No, not every Tuesday. Tuesday, 2 p.m. every Tuesday. I need to finish my coffee. And of course, if you folks would like to join us for our virtual art hive time, that's tomorrow, Wednesdays on Facebook at 2 p.m. over on the Living Room Community Art Studios page, where we just spend an hour and a half making art, hanging out, connecting. You can chat, ask questions, share comments, share images of what you're working on while I putter away doing whatever I'm going to do. It's always such a great time hanging out and making art. But again, until we can connect and create with one another in person, I look forward to connecting and creating with you here online. Reach out, say hi, let me know what you're working on. And thanks for being a part of this community. Have a great day, folks. Bye.